I was alive, but I really couldn't live a life because I was just alive and that was great. And everyone's like, great, just stay in bed, like just stay in the house. And what happened is I started to then experience kind of an intellectual and passion death because I was like, my entire why is to be solving problems and innovating. And I'm just stuck here being alive.
All right, Corey, welcome to Emotionally Uncomfortable.
Hi, Heather.
I'm like, let's get emotionally uncomfortable. I met you on a networking call that I was hosting, and you were telling your personal story. And I'm like, I need Corey to tell the story on the podcast. You're like, well, I'm usually the one behind the scenes. And
That's
I'm
right.
like, I want you to, I'm like, no, please tell this story. And this is the magic of number one, storytelling,
Mhm.
but just like being honest. And I think I felt like a kindred spirit when you were telling your story, because we were talking about near death, and we're going to talk about that today. Because sometimes as women, we're like really stubborn. And I find, if someone identifies as a high performer or ambitious, or they're the responsible one, man, when those ladies come into my world, I'm like, you got an ego. We need to kill this ego a little bit. We need
Mhm.
to humble you. We need to bring you back down to earth. We need to strip away the performative masks and nature and all the responsibility that you've gained so much personal value from.
Mhm.
So, Corey, I'm just going to give you the microphone. I want you to set the tone and set the scene of the slow burn of what came to be of your near-death experience. So
Okay.
welcome.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I know I'm supposed to tell this story. That's the thing. I
Mm.
know I'm supposed to. And I just don't. I so appreciate this invitation to let me practice sharing the story because I just am very clear that it's something that I need to be able to share and it might help or support other people. And everything that you said is so true for me. My body had been talking to me from a very young age. I was bit by a coyote at 2 years old.
Interesting.
And that was, in looking back, that was what changed everything in my health. In the 1975, when I was 2, and a wild animal bites you, you go through a round of shots for rabies. And I was 2 years old, and they do one a day in your tummy for nearly 30 days. I had about 20 of them by the time they had found the pack and killed them and determined they didn't have rabies. So they stopped. But at that point in time, kind of the trajectory was set. And
I just want to
mhm,
know, where were you
I
and
know,
what were you doing to get bit? This is my mom brain is like,
I
okay.
know, Heather,
Yeah.
it's actually, this will go into my next book, all of this, because pretty, it's all pretty profound. I can tell you on the surface, what was happening is that I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and my dad was running on the track at a high school. And my brother, who was 4, and again, this is the 70s. This is the 70s. So we were playing on the metal bleachers in the summertime, and it's hot there. So you go under the bleachers and you're waiting for your dad to finish his workout. And this pack came towards me, and there was one at the front, and we were looking at each other. Now I'm 2 years old. I'm 2 years old. And I went to it. I felt a connection with this creature. I went to it and I reached out to it, and there's a whole pack behind it, and they're all kind of like lined up. And it nipped me, it bit me on my leg. I um, cried out because I was frightened, and my brother ran and got my dad. And those days there were no cell phones, but the ambulance came and all of that. And I kept telling everyone it wasn't its fault. I reached out to it, it kissed me, and I felt that was true. So when they found the pack and killed them all, I was absolutely devastated. And so when I tell you and I share that the bite, the kiss is the bite, it's kind of, there's two stories there. There's the physical of what happened with the injections, and then there's the emotional that I carried of this pack being killed because of me. And actually, it was a mixed pack of coyotes and dogs, which is not a thing. And you want to know something really, this is just silly, but totally true, is that I I have such a connection with dogs. My body, I actually have dog hearing. I actually have like dog hearing. So it's kind of like a Spider-Man kind of thing. People are like, you actually kind of became dog, and you do when there's a kiss or a bite kind of thing. So
Okay,
that's what happened.
I have to stop you there because I'm like, before we hit record, I was like, okay, what are you passionate about? And when you said rescuing dogs and then you told this story, I was like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
I have such a strong connection to dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but
Mm-hmm.
we just spent 3 months in Mexico and there was this pack of dogs at the corner store. Every night I would go and quote unquote talk to them. And my husband's like, let's go for our walk. And I'm like, just talking to these dogs. One of my kids was like, that little asshole almost bit me the other day. I was like, oh, that's because da da da. It's like, I'm describing to her what the dog is saying. And she's like, you are crazy, Heather. And I'm like, no. I'm like, does
Mm-hmm.
everyone not know how to talk to animals? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I completely get it, but you're probably more
Wow.
spidey sense than me. But anywho, I just wanted to say, I was like, ooh,
Another
that's okay.
connection of ours. That's
Why
interesting.
I love Corey even more. Okay, keep going, keep going. So you get bit by this
I do.
coyote.
I do. And so I was born healthy. Everything was great. And some physical things started happening when I was a child. Now, I will also say I grew up in a family that we don't, and this is it's a thing, it's a lineage thing. Like the actual past, like the religious leader on the Mayflower was my direct grandfather. The Mayflower set sail when it did because, you know, all of this. So we are sturdy and we do not complain. We don't get sick. We help others. And if you are going to die, by the way, and you're running like a marathon, could you just before you die, could you grab the person next to you and throw them across the finish line so they can, but then just be quiet, die quietly. So things started happening to me as a child. I started experiencing full dislocations of my shoulder, full dislocations, and started having some fainting spells. But at the time, that was totally my fault. I was either, too stressed, or I was too much, not enough, too much, whatever, that whole thing. And so I learned really quickly to tell my body, shh, quiet. I understand you're talking to me, but I don't have time. I'm not going to listen to you. I have since come to learn that our bodies are actually like the most loyal dogs in the world. Like your body is just trying to tell you, really, I'm going to whisper, I'm just, woof, just a little thing, it will bring you your slippers. They might be chewed up a little, but it's going to constantly. And if you don't listen over time, it will be like, bark, listen. And if you don't, it will definitely start barking at you, but it's not your body's fault. It's our responsibility to listen.
Okay, okay. I used to have this anger towards my body, like, what am I doing wrong? Why did this happen again? And now I'm like, and I tell this to people all the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, if I won't hold the boundary, my body will. I'm like, it respects me so much, but it's like, girl, you ain't paying attention again. I'm going to hold the boundary. And so it's just like you learn to co-create with your body. So I'm tracking. Okay. So your body's whispering, it's barking at you.
I'm not listening. I am not listening because I have too much to do. I have things to accomplish because my why is to solve big problems and to innovate. So
would you identify as being super logical, like left brain at that point?
I am actually very both sides. It's
Okay.
actually this really interesting thing. So I am a ENTJ, but I'm actually very kind of towards the center of a lot of things. So I have a balance of both sides, but I know that I'm towards the logical. So I definitely lean towards the logical. and lean mostly towards the productive. So that just didn't work. I didn't have time. And so a whole lot of things by the time that I became a mom were happening. I have a child who started having seizures at 5, and that began a whole series of events that essentially she had an allergic reaction to the seizure medication. And then they determined she couldn't actually be on any seizure medication. And so the only solution was this crazy diet that no one really knew anyone who had done it. And we did it, and it cured her epilepsy. However, what it required from me was 24/7. I mean, I can't even, it was at the time so complex and required a lot of me physically. So I would be, whatever, soaking things and making this and that. And my arms would be like, falling kind of out of socket, and I'm passing out. I mean, I'm just a mess, but I got to do this for my kid. Plus I had a private practice. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, had a private practice at the time. And at some point in there, I wrote a book with my mom and launched a national health initiative and was partnering. And so this busyness and this solving and this moving forward just kept me not listening to my body. My body just kept getting louder and louder. And by 2015, I was in the ER constantly from the passing out. And no one really could figure it out. And by the time they did, we figured out that I was going into anaphylaxis. And I was technically, at some point, my chart said things like she's allergic to saline, like, like everything.
Core basics.
Yeah, like I was allergic to emotions, basically. I was allergic to temperatures or temperature extremes. Mm-hmm. So I'm allergic to being too hot, being too cold, going from hot to cold too fast, or cold to hot too fast. A whole lot of things were happening. They knew I was in anaphylaxis, but they didn't really understand what was happening. And on August 15th of 2015, my husband and I flew into California for a funeral of a dear friend. And we flew into LAX, and we were just driving over the valley. That's where the funeral was. And I just bottomed out. My blood pressure just dropped. And at that time, I used to have to carry 2 EpiPens because one wasn't enough, but 2 scared the living out of me. That's a lot of adrenaline for you. And so we drove to the nearest hospital, which was this, I don't know, it was a whole weird thing. But I sat in the parking lot and, I was just trying to stay conscious, and we did the 2 and then took me in. And that's where my near-death experience happened. And
we're going to talk about the near death, and we're going to get into that. I'm watching all the shit storm, like the perfect storm that happens to that moment. Mm-hmm. Can you describe what do you call it?
Anaphylaxis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you describe for people who don't know what that is, like what's happening in the body, and if they're like, oh my gosh, I've experienced that, or what that is?
Yeah. I'm sorry for anyone who knows what that is for themselves or their kids. For the most part, it's an allergic reaction. And so your throat swells, your mouth swells, you break out. And not everyone's the same. You can have like hives that begin things without the mouth swelling, the lip swelling. For me, my blood, all of those things, hives, just crazy itching and hives, and my lips would turn blue, and breathing becomes hard. And I have something called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So I have a whole bunch of names, a whole bunch of diagnoses that are associated with this. And so making anaphylaxis worse is that my blood pressure bottoms out and my heart rate goes through the roof. I get tachycardic. So all of those things can be true for people who go through anaphylaxis. And then an EpiPen helps you in theory, but it can be really scary and deadly for anybody. In my situation, it was just happening all the time. It was just we just couldn't control it. We just didn't really understand. Came to find out that I have a condition called mastocytosis, which is similar to mast cell disease. There's a whole bunch of names there on that, but my I have cells. I have too many cells that are producing histamine and an over response of histamine. So that's what we figured out after I had my near death experience. In this time, because I was a licensed marriage and family therapist, I was very interested in people who had said past lives existed. And so many therapists had said, my client has had these experiences. And I'm just like, really? I mean, really? I just couldn't, it just didn't. I'm a person who has to have the facts in front of, I have to experience it myself, I guess. Mm-hmm. I believe my clients and I believe the truth for them, but I just hadn't had that many that said that was true for them. When my second daughter came into the world, I started to believe, because there were some things that she was doing that were like, this has to be past life. But in any case, I went to a person who was who had written a book on it. He invited me into his home and we did a regression. And I was telling him, okay, we're going to do this, but I am not the type who's suggestible. And I really like factually want to do this. And so if I'm not in, under hypnosis, I'm not going to just like lead you on kind of thing. He was like, totally fine. Great. And we went through the process and I slipped immediately into regression. And I went back and back and back and back. He just took me back. And everything, Heather, was so real and so true. It was like you and I right now. It's like feeling this laptop. Like, it is not a dream state. It's just, for me, that's how it felt. And what I learned, and it's a whole long story, which I won't tell at this time, but I learned that I felt that I was kicked out of heaven by God. That when I came to be, that I was told you have to go down there, and I didn't want to. And I said no. Now, I'm not a religious person, by the way. So using those words aren't something that it's like that I need to use, that I have to use, that I'm grown up. This is what I saw. And I told God, I'll do it. I'll go down there. Yeah. But I reject you. I will never turn to look at you again. Never. And I was like, and I went down, and the next thing I saw, I was that little spiral of a human, when you're just like a few weeks old and you just that little pearl necklace of a spiral. You look like a seashell. And I'm in my, mom's belly, and I'm like floating around. I'm like, I hate that guy. I didn't want to be here. Just kind of floating around in her belly. Yeah. So that had been a part of me that I didn't remember. I didn't know. And, who knows? But my near-death experience, the crazy thing about it is that for many people, you hear it's a birth. It's actually, the death is the birth, is the death kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And when I did come back, I was like, oh, I choose to be here this time. I'm not being forced, because I could have let go. I could have just let go, and actually would have all been fine. It was fine. It was fine not to fight. Yeah. But I did, and I came back, and this time it's like all these things fell into place. I was like, oh my God, my body was trying to talk to me. Oh my God, I choose this life. I choose these passions. I choose this. And so that was this shift that occurred for me that was very overwhelming also. And then my mind was ahead of my body, because after you come back from dying, you're not well. Your body is still like going to be in bed for 5 months. And I was like, why did I come back? Why did I choose to come back? Why would I punish myself? But eventually my body caught up to my mind. And there's so much to be learned, and so much to be humble about, and so much to be like, oh, right. Just that stubbornness. It's just a thing,
Okay, so you got emotional there. Mm-hmm. Did I pick up on that?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Why in that moment? And I'm going to tell you why, not only just because I picked up on it, but you got me too. And I'm going to tell you why, but okay. Why'd you get emotional?
Honestly, it's like awe and like wonder and like gratitude. But it took me a really long time to feel that way. I think even when I did decide to come back, and just realizing I'm not alone, that like there's a story to all of this. I think it's so much, Heather. I don't even know if there's words for what brings emotion to me, except that there's something that is a longer story that I am in touch with when I'm sharing this. And yeah, it makes me feel like crying, but it's also just it's awe. It's awe and wonder about it. What came up for you?
So people always joke 'cause I say tears are my love language, but I feel
Mhm.
like sometimes when people are crying, like they're open, like they're
Yeah.
connected. And when you were saying that, it's been so long since I had my quote unquote near death experience. And I wrote about it in my book. It was like 2014 when I was going through treatment. And I remember up until that moment, I was like as a child, I was like, I have no value or purpose on this earth. Like if I left, like I so was trying to eject from my body constantly. And then when I became a mother, I was like, shit, parenting, motherhood is my purpose. This is why I was put on this earth, which is not true. It was just my role at the time. So then I became obsessed with over mothering and over nurturing, and I need
Yeah.
to figure this out. But the story I kept telling myself is I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time.
Mhm.
And then universe, God was like, okay, you keep saying that, I'll limit your
Mhm.
time in your
Mhm.
body. And I had to fight like hell. And that was where I decided to live.
Mhm.
And I was like, it was like someone calling that bluff, right? Like being like, all right, self-fulfilling prophecy. Like
Mhm.
you say you don't have time. I'm gonna put that
There
in
you
front of
go.
you.
Okay, great.
You have no more time here. This is exactly what you said you wanted. You've been trying to
Yeah.
eject for your body for so long. You disrespect this
Yeah.
body, you disrespect this life. Okay, then fucking go. Then
Yeah.
leave. And
Yeah.
then you
Out.
are
Here's the door.
here's the door, walk through
Mhm.
it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I had to
Good.
choose to stay and
Yeah.
not just for my children as the socially acceptable reason. It's like I had to pick this soul to stay here in this body and to fight like hell to feel alive and to
Yeah.
figure it out. And so the whole wonder and awe, and I'm just like, 99.999% of the bullshit that we worry about doesn't even fucking matter.
Mm-mm.
Can you go to that moment? Well, you could say whatever's on your heart right now, but I also want to
Mhm.
hear about the near death experience.
Yeah. I guess what's on my heart right now are a couple things. I would be curious for you so I have your book. I read
Mm-hmm.
every page. I wrote so many things in
Oh
here
my
throughout.
goodness.
There's so many notes. Of course, I can't read my handwriting, so it's really not
Scribble,
very
scribble,
helpful.
scribble. Yeah.
Totally. I'm like, I've talked to Heather about this. I've talked to her about this.
Yeah.
I've come to find that this concept of being kicked out of heaven to go on your mission here is relatively common, and people experience that as divine homesickness. And when I heard that term,
Ooh.
I was just like, what? Oh my God, that's it. Because I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to go home. I wanted to go back. Why did I have to be here? So, and for me, it was
Whoa.
trying to eject myself from my body, but it was through being good. It was through doing it right. It was by showing up not on time, but early. It was helping everyone, solving every problem. And I just wanted God. But again, I didn't even know. I mean, but it all just made sense to me. I just wanted to say, am I good enough now? Can I please go home?
Mm.
Have I done enough? Have I accomplished my mission? Right. And so when I was dying in that moment and I was slipping away, and it's just incredible, profound peace that is just an indescribable peace. I was like, oh my God, this is just so great. And I was having these well, I'll just share. It's actually kind of, I can look back now and laugh at the Corey, the Corey conversation. So I'm slipping away and I'm like, wow, my God, this is the peace. I get to go home. I get to go back. This is so great. And then I started thinking, am I the worst mom in the world? I have 2 kids. Why aren't I thinking, oh, I need to be at their wedding. I need to whatever. And I was like having this argument with, oh my God, I'm like, yep, I feel totally fine leaving. And then this conversation came in at the same time that was like, no, you've been planning for this all along, because when my girls were born, I immediately started building their network, immediately started bringing other women we called comadres, co-mothers, into their circle. And my kids have grown up to this day with this incredible circle of the most extraordinary women and men who are around them, that they can go to them at any time for anything, that, you know, have different personalities and different insights. And I thought, they'll be fine. They have my mom and my dad, who are just brilliant, beautiful people, my husband. I just was like, everyone will miss me, but I'll be fine. So then I led into the letting go, into this peace. And then I had envisioned, when you were talking, they were like, when you were saying the door is open, you're like, great, I'll go through it. And then you're like, wait, like a cat in a doorway, you know? But I was like, ooh, this is so great. I'll go into the peace. And I was like, wait a minute. Wait, stop, everybody. Stop the show.
Yeah.
I think I might want to stay. Hang on. And then there was this like, great. Yeah, you can stay if you want to. Like, great. But you're going to have to like choose that. And so then there was this moment of, for me, when people say fighting for your life, there's not really a way to even describe it other than imagine that you recruit every cell in your body. Like, guys, this is it. Like, this is it. If we're still going to be here, every ounce of strength and you have to recruit everything to be like, you know, to get alive again. And so I fought my way back from that moment. And, you know, all this probably took place within, you know, seconds. So there's just this vast amount of experience that's happening in a very, very, very limited amount of time. And yeah. So is that when, I mean, there's a medical side of what happened to me. My blood pressure bottomed out. They gave me medication I cannot have, which made sense for them to do. It's called a beta blocker. And when someone has some of the symptoms that I have, it would be very normal for you to do that. They'd given me that. And that caused a downslide. And then a very, very weird thing happened, which I can definitely share, but it may sound really out there and kind of kooky. And part of my fear in sharing these stories also, Heather, is that, and I know I'm still supposed to share them, but I really still struggle with like these things that do sound so wild. And people are like, you made this up, or it's your brains, blah, 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 blah. But a woman came into the room after they had stabilized me from the beta blocker, and they were going to transfer me upstairs to the hot. So transfer me upstairs, and my husband and the doctors and everyone had their backs to me, and they were at the desk. This is this tiny little hospital in the valley. And a woman opens the curtains, and she's a beautiful, beautiful young woman. And I immediately am like, something is very wrong here. I do not want this woman to come near me. And she approached me and she said, I need to put something in your IV. And I was like, I don't want whatever you have to give me. And I'm pushing her away. And she puts Benadryl in my IV, which is another thing that would make sense if you're in anaphylaxis. And I'm screaming, don't, no, 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 no. And that's when just I bottomed out.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so this feeling about this person and that her beauty, but this darkness around her, I don't know that it was her specifically or that I had a knowing, but it was terrifying. It was utterly terrifying to know that something is a no and to not be able to fight that off.
I also think it's intuitive primal skill,
Mhm.
and we have it every single day, and we
Mhm.
don't listen to it until you're in those moments and you're like, I'm going to scream because I'm going to trust my gut because I'm terrified, and this is a fuck no for me, and I'm going to honor that in this moment because I'm
Mhm.
at a back door. And
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. I had to
Um
start cursing because I knew my husband would know that I would never curse in a public place.
oh,
So I thought to myself, I'm going to start screaming curse words because that would cause him to turn around, and he did. They
yeah.
all turned around and came running in from me saying, I would think I was just like, F word, F word, F word. Like I don't even know, but
I love that you're just saying F word, F word. If you I I like say the F word out loud on the podcast all the time.
I do you? Okay.
And I've softened over the years. I used to be very like, fuck you.
Mhm.
People were like, I love listening to your podcast. Can you just stop swearing, please? And it was my primal audience. I was just talking about parenting back then.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm sorry, I won't fucking do that. And it was just me, like, just the rebel in me coming out. But I've softened over my years of wisdom.
Mhm.
Um, so much of what you're saying, like I could feel it in my body. I'm getting
Mhm.
chills. Like there's this, the word that kept coming up for me is resonance. I'm like,
Mhm.
it's so fascinating when you're like in your human experience and your brain is like, they're going to think I'm crazy. This doesn't make sense. Like blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. And then it's like a soul meets a soul. And there's this resonance. There's this knowing, this nonverbal communication. Um, so much of what you are saying is just returning me home.
Mhm.
I remember I had this plucking experience, white light one night where I was so scared that I was going to die. Like every day I'm like, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And then this one night it was just like a complete surrender, complete peace. I felt these white lights come in and out of the room. I was in the hospital by myself. Most of the time I was by myself because my husband was at home with the kids. My youngest was a year old. And it was like these angels were coming in and out, but
Mhm.
there was no faces, there was no nothing. I was in complete peace, like I surrendered. Like all they had to do was they're like, finally, this bitch is we got her to a point where she will lay down and be quiet. Like she was such
Mhm.
a, she's so stubborn. And I felt like that Inside Out, like that movie with those little marbles, but they were plucking. They were like, okay, this is no longer serving her. Let's take this
Mm.
out. Let's put something back in. And
Mm.
I will tell you, Corey, when I woke up the next day, I was like, okay, I'm here. I'm staying.
Mm.
Like it was a knowing that I had. It wasn't like a conscious choice that I had to make. It was a knowing. But I remember going to see a woman after, and she, well, intuitive healer vibes. She's like, you had a soul transfer, or soul walk in,
Mm.
or whatever she called it. I always tell people it felt like a chiropractic adjustment for my soul. I didn't feel like a completely different person per se, but I felt like my soul was like in alignment with my
Mhm.
body. Where up until that moment in time in my life, it wasn't that I wanted to eject from my body. I was just like, I don't see the value in this human experience. Like I can't feel the joy. I'm just walking through life numb and
Mhm.
I can't access any of it. And I think it's because I felt so disconnected from what was going on, the reality. I didn't have connection to that spiritual, intuitive side. I didn't have those mentors around me. So everything just felt numb and I kind of became apathetic. I didn't have the mentor, the access to those resources. Now I'm like drinking your Kool-Aid. I completely understand what you're saying. I'm all for it. And I'm like, okay, and I'm raising children in this
Mhm.
3D world and I have to like find the middle, right? I have to find the middle of like, how can I see awe in the everyday mundane to-do list and access that spiritual energy, access those parts of me that none of this fucking matters. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what brand of clothes you're wearing, what kind of car you drive. It's like, how do we meet in the middle?
Mhm.
So how did that get you to where you are today? So we've talked about your story where you
Mhm.
getting bit by a coyote.
We've
Where
really
does
covered quite a bit.
where does that come into play, like, in your recovery? Like, can you tell us about your health now?
Yeah.
Because people are always curious, like, "So how's your health now?" And I'm like, "I'm
Right.
healthier than I've ever been." So what was the trajectory after that?
Yeah, so it took a long, well, it's I guess 11 years ago. We figured out the main problem was this mastocytosis, and I was lucky enough to get in with one of the primary researchers in mast cell up here in Seattle at University of Washington, and he is, long story short, started putting me on medications that started changing everything. And at first, they were what's called H1H2, but it's just Zyrtec and Pepsid, really, actually. And it's how they interact in your body. And that started making things better. And then eventually, we determined that I needed something called Xolair, which is a shot. They now have Xolair commercials on. So maybe some of the parents listening, because I think it's like for kids and hives or something that they advertise. But in any case, that was what saved my life medically, is Xolair. So I have to get a Xolair shot every 4 weeks, maybe for the rest of my life. We don't really know. But figuring out that I needed Xolair and then figuring out everything else from there started to realign things for me, because I've always been a very healthy person. I've always just loved, like, been obsessed with, healthy foods and colorful everything and all of that. And so I think, for our bodies, when everything is so wrong, it takes a long time to figure out how to get that recalibration of our
Mhm.
body. And that's in addition to the trust and all of that with our bodies. But over time, I became very good at also staying away from the things that would trigger me. So to this day, I have to be exceptionally careful going to any place where I'm going to be too hot. I can't. Our family goes to Kauai every year, and there are many years I can't go on a long walk. I can't walk to the juice place, which is a mile away, because it's just too hot and humid. So I stay away from these things. But what happened is that I was alive, but I really couldn't live a life because I was just alive, and that was great. And everyone's like, great, just stay in bed, like, just stay in the house. I couldn't go from the house to the car still if it was hot. So I couldn't leave the house. Like, just be alive. That's great. We're all so happy you're alive. And
Mhm.
what happened is I started to then experience kind of an intellectual and passion death, because I was like, my entire why is to be solving problems and innovating. And I'm just stuck here being alive, and my body is doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend, Kim, calls me, and she had this extraordinary experience with something called nutrigenomics, which is where you discover about your own genetic intelligence and what your strengths and challenges are specific to nutrition, and how nutrition can interplay with your genetics to help you to essentially help your genes to express in healthier ways. So she had been through her own health crisis. She and I met when we were teenagers. We'd stayed in touch. We met at leadership camp in Michigan. And she just said, "Hey, I really think this could help you." And at that time, I was like, I'm seeing the top people I was seeing someone who helped start Bastyr out here. I've got my $1,000 of supplements a month all
Yeah.
lined up, like whatever you have to offer. Like, it's cute, but like,
Yeah, thanks, but no
probably
thanks,
not.
and probably, like,
Yeah.
medication fatigue at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I was not allowed to change anything. And that my husband and my parents and my doctors, everyone's like, no changing. Everything just needs to stay the same. Stay alive. That's great. And she just kind of maintained this. She just kept seeing people improve with this, with nutrigenomics and with this specific technology. And I finally one day and I don't know why, I just was like, okay, I'll give it a try. But at the time, I was also still, again, I could go into anaphylaxis if I wasn't careful. So normally you'd take like 10 capsules a day or whatever. I opened one up and I put a toothpick in it, and I didn't even taste it. I put it on my wrist and I slept with a cloth over to see if my skin would react. And when it didn't, I took a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But meanwhile, I wasn't telling anyone at home. I wasn't telling my doctors, nothing. And within a week, I was like, what the heck? I had energy, and I was like, had some like just little changes going on within a month. And I don't recommend anyone doing this for sure. But I was like, I think I could get off one of my medications. And I just
I love the I did this, don't do it.
I know.
I'm just going to plant the seed. I did
or
this.
I don't know.
Don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But in this capacity, in my role now, I have to say, don't do that. I was able to transform some things for me. I was on medications that trigger problems. As you know, we all know medications. They're going to solve a problem, but they're also going to potentially cause a problem. So I was, this whole mix of things. And then a little while later, Kim calls and she says, let's bring this to the world. Let's bring this technology to the world. I was like, I am totally in. But you have to remember that I could pass out at any time in any meeting. If I am scheduled for a call, I may not be able to take it because I have to take. And she's like, I've known you since we were 16.
Yeah.
Like, I want your mind. I want us to do this. And she didn't have, she was, didn't have to do anything work-wise, and I didn't have to. And we were like, let's bring this to the world. So we brought the company Snip Nutrigenomics, which is snipnutrition.com, to the world. And that is where I am now. And that is what we're doing. I'm technically the COO of the company. And when you're in startup, that means you do everything. You can scrub toilets, and you can, write copy, and you can, I'm kidding. We work.
No,
virtually,
you're not kidding.
But,
you're not kidding.
but I will do anything
Yeah.
to share this extraordinary opportunity for health. My 93-year-old dad, my husband, my kids, everyone I know and love is utilizing this because it's so transformative. So that's where I am now.
You say yes to the podcast interview to tell the stories, the edgy stories of getting bit by coyotes when you were 2. And that is the magic of like when you surrender and just look back of this life journey, right? It reminds me as a parent how so controlling we are in our mothering experience and wanting our kids to become somebody or do something. And it's like, there could be a crazy soul contract that is much bigger than us on, these children that we are gifted to guide. Okay. So I'm all in. I'm listening to your story. I'm like, what is this? Where do I find more of it? What is the experience? So do I go to the website, and is there like a test I have to take? Like, how does this process work?
Yeah. So you go to snipnutrition.com. Mm-hmm. And you can order just the DNA test if you are someone who is maybe like me, that's sensitive. You want to be sure of what's going to be in your supplement. I didn't tell you the best part of all this is that what we do is, so yes, you do a test. It's a cheek swab. It's super. Okay. You can do it in 5 minutes. And you send it to our lab. We are HIPAA compliant. We're not selling your data. We're not interested in your data. We're only interested in finding out about the SNPs. They're called SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are nutritionally actionable. So we take a look at these really heavy hitting, nutritionally actionable genes, and we find out where your variants are, or your challenges or your vulnerabilities are. And then we create we give you all in one a bottle with your name on it that has the nutrition your body needs and your body alone. So we can formulate up to 3 billion different formulations.
Wow.
And so Heather's is Heather's and Corey's is Corey's. And it's a foundational supplement that we say, start with your genes, start nourishing your genes, and then add from there. We talk about stacks a lot in the biohacking world or in health and wellness. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense that our body's intelligence and our body's information, our blueprint, comes from our genes. So starting there before we're like, wait, my girlfriend said this really worked for her, or, whatever. Start with losing the guesswork, starting with what your body knows it needs, nourishing that, and then building from there. So that's the brilliance, really. Nutrigenomics is a science that's been around for decades. But the question was, okay, so those $1,000 of supplements that I was taking, many of those were based on some of my genetics. But $1,000 worth of supplements a month takes up, I mean, it's an entire counter, and you're taking them at this time of day and that time of day and this and this and that. I just read yesterday that one of the Kardashians said she's on 36 different supplements a day and that she has pill fatigue. And I'm like, yeah, like
I have pill
I
rejection.
can totally get it. You have pill rejection?
Yeah. Yeah. I immediately lose respect when someone says you need to take this.
Mm-hmm.
Every healthcare practitioner that I've ever gone to, like, and I've done a lot of functional stuff, will be like, oh, you need to be on this. And then the next person says something else or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I just lie to people. And they're just like, what are you taking? And I was like, what do you want me to take? Oh yeah, I'm taking all of those. Cause like I am so mentally fatigued from this conversation.
Yeah.
And this is why I like, science and the mix of like, okay, there is biology of your body and we need to like, let's go there first and then build off of that, because the reality is we do need these things in our lives. But I do think a lot of people have tried so many things that they are fatigued. And I also believe as this wisdom within you, like as you age, you have so much more life experience that there's a lot of like, I'm not going to call it trauma per se that you have to go through, but you're just like, okay, shut your pie hole. Like just, I'm so done. Right. Like a lot of healthcare influencers per se of like, why are we taking their information? Because it's popular and everyone says to do X, Y, Z. You're like, yeah, but what does my body need? What does my body crave? How do I want to parent? How do I want to live? How do I want to work? What does my body need to thrive?
100%. And that is exactly why we're doing what we are doing, because we're not telling you what you need. Your body's telling you what you need. And you tell us if it's supporting you. And most people have surprising things that they didn't even know were an issue, or they didn't know that they were, feeling a certain way about. I can't say to you, if my libido increases with mine and you have aches and pains that are like, why are my knuckles bothering me, now? Well, I can't say what your product specifically will do for you. Your formulation will do for you. Your body will tell us what it's going to do when it's nourished in these very, very, very powerful ways. When science has said, if you have these variants and you take these specific nutrients, it will support your body in these, inflammatory, ways, or these immune ways, or mental health, mood. There are so many stories. We have some really great stories on our YouTube page, which is SNP. You can look up SNP Nutrigenomics, or you can just look up SNP Nutrition and it will come up. Really quite jaw-dropping and astonishing stories of people, how their mental health transforms once they're getting the nutrients their bodies need. And they tell us their stories. So I'm 100% with you. We should not be listening to things outside of us. We can if we want to. If I call it the leaning in. So I used to do this with my clients. I do this with my kids. I'm like, does your body, if you're like, hey, Corey, have you tried, I don't know, what's your thing right now, Heather? Whatever, this. And I'm like, that's probably your body being like, probably not. And it's not necessarily always a no, but it's just that's a knowing right now. But if someone's sharing something and it's not your brain that's just like, oh, she's cool and healthy and I wanted, but it's like, wait, is she telling me something? Like maybe this, and then give it a try and see. But the great thing about what we do is that we're eliminating any guesswork, and we're just saying, this is, these are very simple whole food ingredients, that your body likely needs. Go ahead and take it and let's see how you do. And so many stories of people truly transformed, like mine or like our CEO's, Kim's. So I'm in agreement.
Yay. I love it. I also am a true believer that we are supposed to thrive in this life.
Mhm.
And if we do not feel like we are thriving mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, it's not always, my belief is that it's not necessarily like, this was the card that you were drawn. I think, based on your story, spiritually, you
Mhm.
may have to have a quote unquote near death experience to be reborn and come back to life. But because I have a belief that I should feel good and I should thrive, when I don't,
Mhm.
I go seeking support. And if I seek support, I try it out and I'm like, wow, I gained so much value from that. And I will co-create with life. I will co-create with resources. I think we just need to deeply trust ourselves. And if you're listening to
Totally.
this conversation going, there's something here, then
Mhm.
lean in, as you were saying.
Mhm.
Corey, thank you. I could talk to you forever. We'll have to have you back
Ditto.
or something. Maybe after you write your book.
We have a lot to talk about. I'll read my handwriting and then I'll figure it out. We'll make a list.
Oh my gosh. You're like, I know there was questions, but okay. So SNIP, SNIP.
Nutrition.com. That's right.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Corey,
That's right.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather.